For decades, Kody Brown ruled the Brown family with control, authority, and expectation. Every decision, every word, every reaction, he believed it was proof he was at the center of it all. But in this season 20, episode 11, everything will change. One wife, Janelle, stops arguing. She stops negotiating. She stops reacting. And in that silence, Kody loses control. The calm on her face isn't peace, it's power. The woman who once built the family's finances, the stability, the backbone of their world, has already walked away, quietly, deliberately, while he spirals in chaos. Tonight, we break down how one quiet exit, one composed stance, and one refusal to play the game shifts the balance of power forever. You're about to see the moment Kody realizes the family he thought he controlled is no longer his to command. Something feels different about episode 11 almost immediately. Not because of what is said, but because of what isn't. Viewers have been programmed over the years to take cues on a scene's temperature from Janelle's reactions. When tensions rose, she explained. When conflict escalated, she negotiated. When Kody pushed, she countered with logic, spreadsheets, timelines, and calm reasoning. Janelle was always the stabilizer, the one who could take chaos and turn it into something survivable. But in episode 11, that pattern is nowhere to be found. Janelle is calm in a way that feels final. Her posture is relaxed. Her tone is even. There's no defensive edge, no attempt to soften Kody's emotions or rescue the conversation from spiraling. She listens. She responds briefly. Most of all, she doesn't chase clarity. She doesn't try to get Kody to understand her point of view. That absence speaks louder than any argument. Kody, from the outset, is restless. His speech goes quicker, his movements more angular. He's speaking with the apparent intention of sparking something: anger, tears, resistance, something that confirms the old dynamic is still alive. Instead, it doesn't work. Every surge of emotion is met by a wall of quiet control from her. And that's when the penny drops. This isn't peace. This isn't forgiveness. This is disengagement. Longtime viewers know Janelle well enough to recognize the difference. When she still cared deeply, she fought calmly. But she fought. She insisted on being heard. She believed logic could still fix what emotion had broken. That woman is not sitting in front of Kody in episode 11. This Janelle isn't trying to fix anything. She isn't looking for his approval. She isn't seeking assurance. She isn't drawing a roadmap of how to advance together. Rather, she speaks as one who has already digested the implication and moved on accordingly. And that's what makes Kody uneasy. There is a moment, subtle but undeniable, where Kody pauses, almost confused. His usual strategies aren't landing. The anger doesn't trigger compliance. The frustration doesn't provoke negotiation. The authority he's used to wielding sounds strangely hollow in the room, because authority only works when someone is willing to react to it. Janelle doesn't. Her calm is wrong because it breaks the rhythm of their history, the way it has always been. Conflict led somewhere toward a solution, or at least a compromise. Now, conflict just exists, unresolved, unimportant, and for the first time, Kody seems to realize that he may be reacting to a woman who is no longer emotionally present in the outcome. This isn't the calm of someone holding it together. That's the calm of a person who has already let go. Episode 11 quietly sets the stage for a larger truth, which is that power in relationships doesn't always disappear in loud explosions. Sometimes, it vanishes in silence, in neutrality. In the moment, one person stops caring whether the other understands. Janelle's calm doesn't invite discussion, it closes it. And that's why it is so uncomfortable to watch. Because beneath Kody's frustration is a growing awareness that something essential has slipped beyond his grasp. Not respect, not loyalty, but relevance. He's still speaking as if his opinion will determine the direction of things. Janelle is responding as though that direction has already been chosen by her. As episode 11 unfolds, viewers aren't witnessing a fight. They're witnessing the aftermath of a decision that was made off camera long before this conversation began. And in that quiet, almost polite exchange, the balance of power subtly, but unmistakably shifts. After all, the one who remains calm during emotional chaos is typically the one who has already located an exit. Long before emotions fell apart, this family was grounded in one thing far more tangible: money. And no one knew that more than Janelle. From the earliest seasons of Sister Wives, Janelle was never positioned as the romantic heart of the family. That role belonged elsewhere. Her contribution was quieter, steadier, and often invisible to the cameras, but it was essential. She was the one who made the numbers work when the vision didn't. The one who tracked budgets while others talked about dreams. The one who understood that belief alone couldn't pay mortgages, feed children, or finance cross-country moves. And over time, Janelle learned a critical thing. Emotional chaos is survivable when the finances are stable, but not the other way around. In episode 11, that comprehension manifests in everything she doesn't say. Kody talks about fairness. He talks about loyalty. He talks about sacrifice. But Janelle's reactions suggest she's thinking about something else entirely. Risk, exposure, reality. Her calm isn't rooted in hope, it's rooted in preparedness. This is a woman who has already counted what she's lost and what she can still secure. Viewers often forget how much of this family's survival ran through Janelle's decisions. She was the one willing to relocate for financial stability, the one who worked consistently outside the home, the one who pushed for long-term planning when emotions clouded judgment. Even the infamous land, Coyote Pass, was discussed not as a dream by her but as an investment that needed structure, timelines, and accountability. In episode 11, those past instincts finally surface as detachment. Kody's frustration reads as emotional abandonment. Janelle's calm reads as someone who has already separated love from logistics. And that separation changes everything. When money is no longer emotional, power shifts. Kody's authority had always been strongest when the family believed he was leading them toward security. But as the family structure fractured, that illusion broke down. Decisions became impulsive. Promise went unmet. Plans stalled. And for someone like Janelle, instability isn't emotional, it's unacceptable. So she adapted. She stopped coupling her future with shared dreams that were never realized. She stopped waiting for consensus that never materialized. She began to think independently, not in rebellion, but in self-preservation. Episode 11 doesn't show Janelle arguing for resources. That's important. She isn't begging for fairness. She isn't pleading for transparency. Those conversations already happened off camera, in years of disappointment. What we see now is the result. Kody feels like he's being blindsided because, in his mind, the fight happened recently. For Janelle, though, it's long over. That's why she isn't reacting. That's why the emotional appeals fall flat. And that's why his frustration only underscores her clarity. Money doesn't create loyalty, but it reveals it. Janelle's financial insights removed the mirage that it was safer to stay rather than to leave. Once she knew stability within the marriage was no longer ensured, the emotional cost became unjustifiable. That's the shift episode 11 captures so quietly. This isn't about greed. It's about survival. A woman who spent decades holding a family together with practicality finally coming to a realization that responsibility isn't self-erasure. Kody's chaos feels loud because it's rooted in loss, the loss of control, the loss of relevance, the loss of the system that once centered him. Janelle's calm feels unsettling because it's rooted in acceptance. She doesn't have to yell to have power. She just needs to be prepared. And, as episode 11 makes clear, Janelle isn't emotionally invested in fixing something that is financially broken. She's already recalculated the cost and chosen herself. Because when a woman who handles the money stops fighting, that's usually because she has found a way out already. By episode 11, Kody's emotions no longer lead the conversation, they're chasing it. And that distinction matters, because the louder someone gets, the clearer it becomes that they're no longer in control. What's remarkable isn't just that Kody is angry. He has always been angry when challenged. But what's different now is who isn't reacting. Janelle's calm has removed the fuel that once kept his authority alive. Without that response, his frustration has nowhere to land. Kody speaks in absolutes. He leans into language about loyalty, respect, and betrayal. But beneath those words is something far more revealing: panic. He's attempting to pull Janelle back into a familiar emotional pattern, one where he sets the tone and others respond. It does not work. Every time he raises the emotional temperature, Janelle lowers it. She doesn't mirror him. She doesn't defend herself. Most importantly, she doesn't try to correct his perception. That silence isn't weakness. It's disengagement. And disengagement is devastating to someone who relies on reaction as proof of relevance. Control doesn't disappear in an instant. It erodes. For years, Kody's influence has rested on emotional dependence. Decisions were made in moments of intensity, pressure, urgency, moral framing. When wives reacted emotionally, they validated his role as the center of the family. But episode 11 finally shows that this system has broken. The words coming out of Kody's mouth are almost performative. like a rehearsal of arguments that worked once before. He escalates because escalation once produced results. This time, it only produces distance, and that's the real chaos. The more he pushes, the more exposed the imbalance becomes. His agitation fills the space because no one else is feeding the narrative. Janelle sits back, listening with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs approval to proceed. He is not arguing to resolve the conflict, but to regain his footing. There's a particular kind of anger that rises to the surface when authority is questioned not with defiance, but with indifference. Episode 11 captures that shift with uncomfortable clarity. Janelle isn't rejecting Kody. She's simply no longer centering him. That loss of centrality feels intolerable to him. Viewers can feel it in the cadence of his delivery, the repetitive arguments, the circular reasoning. He's reaching for emotional traction in an argument that passed him by some time earlier. His responses become the story because nothing else is happening, and that alone is a sign of defeat. Meanwhile, Janelle's stillness becomes the most powerful presence in the room. She lets him talk. She lets him spiral. She doesn't interrupt. In fact, not because she agrees, but because she doesn't need to correct anything anymore. Her future is no longer tied to persuading him. That's the part Kody doesn't seem prepared for. When someone stops arguing, it's often because they have won a battle that the other one hasn't realized is over. Janelle's quiet is not passive, it's strategic. It's the kind of calm that comes from emotional closure. Kody's chaos, on the other hand, is reactive. It is the sound of a structure collapsing under its own weight, one rant, one frustration, one unacknowledged loss of control at a time. Episode 11 isn't about a man exerting his authority. It is about a man reacting to the realization that his influence is no longer assumed. That realization hits harder than any open rebellion, because rebellion still acknowledges power. Indifference does not. As the episode progresses, it becomes evident that Kody is battling a version of Janelle that no longer exists, the woman who needed his approval, who believed logic could still stabilize emotion, who was willing to meet him in the middle. That woman is gone. All that's left is a person who has stepped outside the chaos and may watch it play out unurgently. Because when control disappears, it doesn't go quietly, it rages. And episode 11 captures that rage in real time. By the time episode 11 unfolds, Janelle isn't walking out of doors, packing boxes, or delivering dramatic ultimatums for the cameras. She isn't staging confrontations or declaring independence. Her exit is quieter, subtler, and infinitely more powerful. And most viewers might not even notice it at first glance. For years, audiences have equated leaving with spectacle. The dramatic goodbyes, the tearful confrontations, the angry declarations, easy to see, easy to talk about, easy to sensationalize. But the most devastating exits often happen silently, leaving others unprepared, off guard, and scrambling to catch up. It is exactly that which episode 11 captures in Janelle. At first, her detachment is nearly imperceptible. She keeps the conversations going, nods politely, and calmly answers Kody's increasingly agitated questions. To a layperson's eyes, it would have seemed like composure. However, anyone who has taken note of decades of history knows better. Every word measured, every pause, and every refusal to argue is a marker that Janelle has long disengaged from the system that once revolved around Kody. This is the hallmark of a quiet exit. Unlike a dramatic confrontation, it doesn't force a reaction in the moment. It erodes influence slowly. Kody's outbursts, once powerful, now drift against a wall of neutrality. His attempts to negotiate, to dominate, to assert control, hit nothing. She isn't participating in the tug of war. She's simply watching it unfold while stepping away piece by piece. The brilliance of this quiet exit lies in its invisibility. It doesn't make headlines immediately, but it changes the landscape utterly. By removing her emotional engagement from the equation, Janelle forces a reckoning on everyone else. Kody, so used to reacting and trying to control through intensity, finds himself flailing. He's speaking to an audience of one who no longer listens in the same way, and that absence is deafening. Episode 11 doesn't just portray Janelle withdrawing. It portrays a woman who has made decisions long before the cameras rolled. Her boundaries, her plans, and her sense of self-preservation have been set in concrete long before this episode aired. Viewers only see the aftermath, the ripple from years of quiet recalibration. Each calm response, restrained smile, and silent nod forms part of the strategy she has been using for a long time. This is why the contrast with Kody is so stark. He is performing the same emotional moves he always did, expecting to receive the same reactions he once received. But the woman in front of him no longer exists in that dynamic. Janelle's exit is silent, but it is also total. She no longer seeks validation, doesn't respond to manipulation, and isn't motivated by loyalty that costs her self-respect. It serves as a subtle reminder to the viewer. Sometimes, the most powerful actions are the ones we barely notice. In a family system as complex and publicly scrutinized as the Brown household, a quiet withdrawal can create ripple effects that prove far more dramatic than any explosive confrontation. The system does not explode in a shout. Instead, it crumbles when its participants stop playing their roles, and that is exactly what episode 11 conveys. The wives are not fighting anymore because the system has changed beneath their feet. Janelle's exit is silent but clear. She has already removed herself from the need to validate, to negotiate, or to fight. Her presence is still in the room, but her engagement has gone elsewhere, into independence, into planning, into control over her life. Robin may still be finding her place in the family. Kody might still attempt to exert his authority over others, but that quiet exit leaves one very undeniable truth. The power that once resided in anger and emotion has quietly shifted away from him. Ultimately, episode 11 proves a lesson in human behavior and family dynamic. The most profound exits aren't marked by shouting or slamming doors. They are measured and invisible and strategic. Janelle's quiet departure is the kind that changes outcomes without people fully realizing it until it is already done. And as viewers, we are left to witness it unfold. The calm, controlled, deliberate withdrawal of a woman who has already won the battle most people didn't know was being fought. Because sometimes the loudest exits are silent, and sometimes silence is absolute power. Episode 11 doesn't end with yelling. It doesn't end with the slam of doors or cameras capturing the shot of someone running out in frustration. It ends with something far more unsettling, a shift in power so quiet, so absolute, that this family will never be the same. So, for years, Kody Brown operated under a profoundly simple principle. Authority is preserved through emotional engagement. When his wives reacted, whether in frustration, negotiation, or defense, he had proof that his role as the family center was intact. But episode 11 fully upends that dynamic. Janelle's calm, her silence, her refusal to play into the expected emotional script changes everything. Power, it turns out, doesn't always reside in control. Sometimes it resides in the absence of response. Janelle's quiet withdrawal serves notice to onlookers that she has already stepped outside the rules that once governed the Brown family. And when someone removes themselves from a system, the structure begins to collapse, not in chaos, but in inevitability. Kody's reaction is telling. He yells, he tries to persuade, he tries to reason, and even threatens, though none of it sticks. The tools that once granted him absolute compliance now expose the hollowness of his influence. Where he expects loyalty, there is detachment. Where he expects reaction, there is silence. Episode 11 makes undeniable the fact Kody no longer holds the power he once believed he had. This isn't just about Janelle. It's about the whole family dynamic. The collapse isn't immediate, but it's structural. Robin may still be sorting out her place, Christine is long gone, Mary's distant, and Kody is grasping at fragments of authority. The system that once balanced multiple relationships, responsibilities, and personalities no longer functions because the women who kept it alive found their independence quiet, calculated, and tactical. Episode 11 captures a lesson in human behavior that is often overlooked by audiences. True power is not always visible. It's not announced or celebrated. It's earned through consistency, awareness, and the courage to disengage where and when needed. Janelle's calm isn't a lack of emotion. It is a sign that the cost of remaining entangled in chaos outweighed the benefits long ago. By the time Kody realizes that, she has already won the battle he didn't know was being fought. What's fascinating and what makes this moment so compelling is how it reframes the story we've been told for 20 seasons. The narrative of polygamy, hierarchy, and control has always centered around Kody. But episode 11 shifts that perspective. The real authority does not lie in the person with the loudest voice or the longest tenure, but in the one who decides when, where, and how to engage. That person, in this moment, is Janelle. From a broader perspective, episode 11 also teaches viewers about the invisible power of choice. The decisions that each wife has quietly made over the years add up to a force that brings irreversible change. It is not the fights, the confrontations, or the arguments that dismantle a family. It is the purposeful, steady acts of withdrawal, clarity, and self-preservation. In many ways, the breakup of the Brown family is not a scandal. It is an inevitability once the players understand the cost of staying. For Kody, reality is stark. Authority isn't a given, loyalty isn't a guarantee, and influence can't be demanded, but rather cultivated, respected, and acknowledged. Episode 11 shows that when those elements are absent, chaos is the natural byproduct. His frustration is loud because he feels powerless, even though he has never been louder in asserting control. That contrast, the noise of chaos against the quiet of detachment, defines the final power shift. We're left as viewers to ponder the implications. The collapse of authority isn't always dramatic, and the end of control isn't always violent. Sometimes it is quiet, deliberate, and complete, and episode 11 proves that truth in cinematic clarity. Janelle's calm doesn't just signify independence, it signals the end of the system that once revolved around Kody Brown. Ultimately, episode 11 isn't about the fight, it's about coming to one's senses. Real power, more often than not, resides in composure, foresight, and the courage to step away. The Brown family structure doesn't fall down in a fight. It falls when the people holding it up stop fighting in the first place. And that is the lesson of this episode. As calm replaces chaos, silence replaces reaction, and independence replaces obligation, the family you knew can never be the same again.